My name's Uncle Steve. This is my workshop. And this is my 16-foot steel I-beam cantilever rack that I just finished building from scratch. You can go out and buy one of these for around $4,000, but in this video, I'm going to show you the steps I took to make one on my own for a quarter of the price. Welcome back to the shop. Today's project is making a cantilever rack right here to store all my lengths of metal. So here's our design. It's gonna be 16 feet tall, 6 feet spread between the two, 4-foot legs, some cross braces, and a bunch of arms. And we're gonna make that out of this beam here. This is W620 beam, pretty much 6x6 wide flange H-beam, I-beam. And that will be the legs and the uprights. This smaller beam will make the lower arms, that'll carry the most weight. And then this 3x3 by 1/8 wall tube will make up the remaining arms. And it will also make up the cross braces. And then we're gonna use this 2" by 1/4 flat bar to make the cross braces. So instead of welding this all together as one piece, I wanna be able to move these around as I get more stock. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna chop our uprights into 3-foot sections, and we're gonna mount them onto these plates that I had cut for me. I could have bought the flat bar myself, cut it, and drilled a bunch of holes, but I've got enough holes to drill in the beams, so I figured I'd let the guy down the street with the CNC laser table do a nice job of these. And how these will work is those 3-foot arms will mount onto here, and with our nice grade 8 bolts, washers, and nuts, we'll fasten each plate through the holes we put in here, like that. Now, how are we gonna drill these holes, you ask? Well, we're gonna use a few new tools. New forklift, cello, that's a big deal for the shop. And our annular bit, which is kind of like a hole saw bit, but it uses much harder steel, so I hear. And it's got a little center guide. They're meant for mag drills, which are quite expensive and I don't have a lot of need for. So before I buy one of those, I figured let's spend $50 on this adapter that fits into my drill press, and these fit in there. So we're gonna use the forklift to pick up the beam, pull out the drill press, and pretty much spend all of today punching that pattern of holes into those two beams. But before we do that, we gotta get it cut down to size. Okay, that's our beams cut. So this smaller beam I got here at a really good deal from a guy I bought a trailer off of. He had a trailer full of steel, but it's all full of little weld boogers everywhere. So I'm gonna nick those off, clean it up, and then this will be the first set of arms that's gonna carry the bulk of material, the heaviest loads. So let's get that cleaned up. All right, she's not cute, but it's a lot stronger than that 3-inch tube there, so it's gonna work. All right, so we got all of our uprights, or sorry, our arms, all of our arms cut, long day. 2 longer ones, 2 beams, all the beams cut, cross braces. I gotta do a bit of math to figure out the angles and distances to do that. But here's what it'll look like, these arms. I made a bit of a math boo-boo. So, when I was getting these plates cut, I tried to do the math in my head to make the holes as close to the center as possible. Leave as much meat on the outside as possible. But as you can see, there's almost no room between those edges. So I think it'll work out okay. I'm just going to have to weld as much as I can and leave the corners out. So it'll be fine. But that just goes to show, with the cost of steel, measure 3 times, pay for expensive steel once. That's the way to do it. Now the last thing is I'm going to make some plates for the cross braces to mount to the insides of the beam. So these plates will go here, 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 here. And then I'm going to cut a couple stubs to put on the ends. So for round tubing, for circle tube, so it doesn't roll off. So I'm gonna chop this up quick for that. Okay, while the plates are finishing up being cut, I'm trying to line these up as close as I can and mark out where I want each of my arms to go. And the key here is these gotta be dead in line. It doesn't matter if they're not perfect distances apart, but they have to be matching for the metal to sit flat, obviously. So, wish I had my bigger square today. Okay. All right, well, I let the last of that plate get cut up. I don't have time left today to start drilling these holes, so I'm gonna leave that till tomorrow, and I'm gonna grind off all these edges and get them ready to have the plates welded on. All right, those are all cleaned up and ground down. Takes a bit of extra time, but it makes your welds a lot easier to do. It makes them a lot cleaner, and it makes them a lot stronger, giving a little river, I call it, for the molten metal to flow into. Clean these plates up. All right, that's all for today, folks. I'll see you back in the morning. All right, day 2. This speed square clamped to them. It has a little center pin, so I could center punch these, but I don't know how to hit dead center, and I need to be too accurate. So I found a bit the same size as this hole, and I'm going to make a small drill dent, sort of, and because this is the same size as the hole, it's a bit smaller actually. It should be pretty close to center. Get her a bit more indented. Okay, in theory, there we go. I think that'll work, but until I drill the first set, I don't know. Now, I've got 3/4 inch bolts. These are 11/16. That's 11/16, so I got a bit of tolerance. So let's give it a go. Alright, that drill press adapter did not work. So I ended up getting that drill, cheapest one I could find, $700 on sale. So Hopefully this will speed things up and you'll get partially review on that, so let's bust this thing open. Let's give her a go. Wow, that is pretty impressive. Now, I don't know how long that bit will stay sharp enough to keep doing that, but wow, that is impressive. I should have got this in the first place. If you're doing any beam work where you're cutting holes into thick steel, anything along that, a mag drill is worth it. Damn. $700, you can find them cheaper on Marketplace and whatnot. Kijiji, Craigslist. But wow, that is impressive. Huh. All right. So, 1 down, 72 to go. I'll film the first 4 and make sure the plate works. And assuming that works, then I'll just time lapse the other 72. You don't need to see that. Wow. That is cool. Look how clean those holes are too. God damn. Moment of truth. Did our little manual drill pilot holes work? My golly. Look at that.
Once I got the hang of it, it was punching holes in this 3/8 steel in less than 30 seconds. Compare that to about 10 minutes with a pilot hole, a solid bit, using a drill press.
All right, we're at an important crossroad. We got all of our cutting done. We've got all of our drilling done. So let's check this out before I start welding. So we got all our holes for our base plates for our legs. These get welded onto here, which then get fastened onto here. And then we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 arms that are going on here. So between our longer guys, all of our main 3-foot arms, the top ones will be smaller for maybe lumber or something. And then we got our bottom ones are gonna be these beams. So these plates go on these, same thing, get bolted to those guys. Now, okay, we got some holes here. So these, those, these, and these, what these are for is these are our cross braces. So these guys here are these. These get welded to the end and then they get bolted through the beam here. So these plates are gonna go here. Last thing I gotta do before we start welding is clean up the welding table from the last project where I was lazy and painted on my welding table, which is a big no-no. So give me a sec to clean that up. Like Clark Griswold. All right. Little blow down. All right, that looks better. It took a lot longer than I was planning, which is every reason why you don't paint on your fab table. I don't know why I can't learn that lesson. All right, let's get welding. How you doing? Okay, as you can see here, we got our first couple welded up. Kind of figured out what worked, what didn't. So let me show you kind of my process for this. So I start off with my plate. There's my mounting plate. What I do is I mark center on both sides. So 6-inch plate, mark a dot at 3, dot at 3, and then put a line right across. My marker's running out, but you can see now we got all 4 centers marked. Now we're gonna do the same thing with the arm. We're gonna mark on 2 sides, the dead center here. 1.5, 1.5. Okay. So this is the process I use when I make parking lot light poles. I make a lot of light poles, and it's important to keep them perfectly 90 with the ground, obviously. So I do this exact process, and I take my two sides closest to me, and I try to line up my dot with my lines on both sides. So if that dot's lined up here, that dot's lined up there, then in theory, everything in theory, that should be perfectly centered on all sides. So next thing I do is I want to clamp this to the table. The welding table was carefully made to be perfectly flat. So I'm going to clamp this down here, clamp it down on the other side. I really should have 4 clamps on each side, but I tested it out and it works. So you can use a little square like this, but I like to use this guy, which is digital. So let me get it tacked into place, and I'll show you how it works. Okay, so now that it's tacked, we want to make sure it didn't pull in any which direction. So I put this down here on our plate, and I zero it, so I know that it's, regardless if it's off center, our reference point is the plate is zeroed. So now I throw it up here. The higher you go, the more accurate it's going to be. We got 89.7 degrees. So I like to work within about a half of a degree. So 89.6 is perfect. Throw it on the other side here. 89.8, even better, okay? So all 4 sides are perfectly 90 within half a degree. That's what we want. So the next step is, rather than welding the full bead across, that puts a lot of heat and that's going to have even more desire to pull. So what I'm going to do is do half this weld and go on the other side, do half there, come back, do the other half, and then work my way around, and we'll check for square again after that. So let's weld this up. Other half. Still up here. Okay, so make sure it's still zeroed. 89.4. We'll call it acceptable. 89.7, okay? So we tacked it up, made sure it's all square, and by working our way around on opposite sides, only doing half, we made sure that even though it's fully welded up, it's still perfectly perpendicular with the plate. So we got 4 of them down, 8 to go, and then the legs. So I'm going to put it on time lapse, and then when it's time to do the big plates on the legs, we'll film it up again. Okay, now for the beam arms. We need the beam to fit in between the bolt holes, right? So in a perfect world, we got half an inch on the bottom here, and that lines us up nicely. So these plates are half inch, so I have 2 more for the big beams that are going to be the legs. I got them under here just to lift me up half an inch. What I'm going to do here, same thing as the posts for the most part, is I'm going to mark halfway, 3-inch beam, 1.5 marked, and our plate is 6 inches, so we go to 3. And now, when I line this up, my holes are perfectly in the middle and on top. So this doesn't have to be that cute, so I'm just gonna hold it in place with my hand here. Give it 4 tacks. Tack 1. Tack 2. So now I'm just gonna go work my way around, weld it solid. The backside. We got both arming legs welded up all the way around. Again, not the prettiest, the metal's pretty rough, but it's going to be strong. Alright, now for the legs. I got the one welded up here. The only issue I ran into is I couldn't get that fat of a weld up top here because my bolt head is going to hit it. So I did real fat in the center and kind of a little skinnier on the side. So let's do this last one. So, exact same thing. This one's a bit easier because this is resting on the ground, it's got to be flush with the bottom of this plate. So I can just rest this on the table, wrong way, like that. So, let's do the same thing. 3 here. So we're doing the same thing as the smaller beam. We just don't have a spacer under here. Line them up, hold in nice and flat. Okay, we're all tacked in place. Same thing, rip beads all the way around these bad boys. Nice. Flip it over, do the same thing, and we're done. All right, guys, we're done welding for the day. Let's go take a look at what we've done. All right, that's a lot of welding I did today. I finished off doing pretty nice clean welds on the thicker stuff. And as I go to the top here where I started, not so pretty, but that's okay. I think they're plenty strong and these are gonna hold the least amount of load. The heaviest stuff will be down here. Tomorrow we'll be back here to clean all of this steel up, get a nice coat of paint on it. And then the following day, we're gonna have to figure out how to hoist these bad boys up in the air, get them up on that wall before we bolt everything together. So I'm gonna lower these now. I'm heading out, but I'll see you guys back here in the morning to do some painting. Okay, time to get all these cleaned up and ready to paint. The tubing's not bad. That's pretty fresh, so I'll clean up some of the welds here. And the beam was sitting outside for a while at the steel yard, so we'll clean up the spots that are a little gnarly. These beams are pretty gross. These sat outside for like years, so they're gonna get the most of the cleanup. And I'm gonna throw the camera on the tripod on time lapse and just go ham with the wire brush. So see you back when I'm done. All right, there we go. We got everything cleaned off. Looking fresh, ready to paint. Could do better, but I mean, most people would say painting this is a little too much. But I'm gonna have customers coming in here, so I put in all this time and work to make this nice and proper. Might as well make it nice and pretty, get some lipstick on there. That's the bottom of the beam. I'm not gonna paint the backs, but you can see the difference cleaning it up makes, and the paint will stick a lot better. I'm not gonna prime it, just gonna throw the paint right on there, but Pretty happy with that. So now let's get out the fire red and start painting. All right, paint is dry. Looking candy cane fresh. My original plan is I was gonna lift each arm up just on its own like this, hold it up in the air, put some straps around it there, bolt the big legs on the bottom, and then add the arms on after. And the more I got thinking, the more I thought that's gonna be a lot of work. I'm saving myself, I guess, a bit of risk of it lifting up and tipping if I build it all together. But I think the forklift will be able to handle it plenty. I think if I get some good straps and I weld some hooks under the tip of my forks, I'll be able to assemble the full thing on the ground here, lift it up into place, and because my top cross member is at 12 feet, I should have plenty of lifting room to just sort of, as it's fully stood up, kind of hover it off the ground a smidge and actually just push it right into place. So that's what I'm gonna do now. I'm gonna take all these arms, slap them on here. Maybe I won't do the bottom couple. Maybe I'll just do them all. Give me a minute to do that. Okay, we're coming along. We got all the arms bolted on. Now, the last thing to do is to cut and then paint these cross braces and then bolt them in. Got the saw set to 62 degrees, which the internet says is the right angle those will sit on. So now we gotta cut these bad boys. All right, let's nip the end off this. Like I'm walking a tightrope here. $151.5. Boom. All right. And would you look at that? Our angles, pretty darn accurate. And our length, pretty darn accurate. Okay, perfect. So now, assuming I got this all square, which I took a good amount of time to ensure, it should be the same length this way. But why don't we just use the piece we already have cut and do the same thing. Okay, we're a bit long here. Let's see how much we're long by. I mean, it's pretty darn close. I could jam that in there, but let's take off 1/4 of an inch on the next one. Okay, took a couple trims to get it right, but there we go, perfect. Okay, so now what I'm gonna do, mark my holes, boom, boom, 5, well, in each total 6 holes. I'll pull out the mag drill, punch those holes quickly, double check they all line up, and then slap a coat of paint on just the top of this. Almost everything I didn't paint the bottom because 1, I'm running low on paint, and 2, you're never gonna see it. If I was building a project for somebody else, obviously I would paint the back, but this is just for my purposes, so painting the front's plenty good, and then I don't have to get my hands too painted as I bolt this into place. So let's go quickly punch some holes. Let's mark them first, punch some holes. Okay, kind of roughly I can stuff the marker in there and get a bit of a reading. All right, y'all already know the drill with this puppy. Okay. Boom. All right, you get the picture. Gonna do the same thing over there. And then I'll cross them over with the line I marked and punch one right through. Swing. All right, so we know it fits, that's great. So next things next is gonna clean these up, paint the top of them, bolt them in. Ba-da-ba-ba. All right, quick little lipstick. Let that sit for a sec. These are actually gonna go under. How do I lock that in? Ah, there we go. All right. Okay, they're all in. Okay. All right, now let's just use a bit of our leftover lipstick here. Wah, wah, wah. Clean up our little boo-boos we made. What boo-boos, right? Exactly, exactly. Okay, so because my latest plan to get this up is to wrap these two lifting straps onto the forks and then spaced out at the same distance as the forks on that crossbar. It's gonna be purely up force, but I still don't want the straps to slide off for any reason. So I'm going to weld on some little posts here to put the straps around just to ensure they don't slide off. So that's the next step here. Okay, I don't love the idea of welding onto the forks, but I got one shot at this, and I don't want this thing to fall. Okay, here we go. Straps are ready, forks are ready. So I'm gonna give this a go. I'm gonna try just wrapping them around a couple times. I know that's gonna be sketchy, but I feel like anything I try to do is gonna be sketchy, so it's just a matter of what is the least sketchy. We're up. Wow. Damn. There we go. Damn, that's fucking awesome. What a project. Oh, that makes me so happy.
This was my first project using my new forklift and one of the first times working with big steel beams. So although in hindsight there's a bunch of things I would have done differently, I'm pretty proud of how this rack turned out. It's going to give me a ton of extra floor space in the shop for future builds. I appreciate the time you've given me on this project. I gotta go load this thing up with steel and get prepared for the next one.